5 Live Sport.
Cricket.
Well, that's very simple and effective. 5 Live Cricket. God, what a terrible jingle. Phil Tufnell is with us. We hope to get Stephen Finn shortly. He's just having a few technical issues. Are you all right?
I thought it was very to the point, chap.
Well, it was, wasn't it? I mean, cricket. All right, well, that is what we're going to talk about. Stephen is with us. Evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Were you where did I see you this weekend? Were you at Welsh Fire yesterday?
I've been all over the place, if I'm being quite honest with you, chappers.
Yeah.
Yes, I was there, though.
It looked like the atmosphere was great there last night, I have to say.
Yeah, it was excellent. I think all of the games that I've attended live this year in the 100 have been fantastically supported, very partisan, as you'd expect as you go around the country. And myself and Owen Morgan actually were walking back to our hotel last night in amongst the crowds, and it really is a different type of crowd to what you would usually expect to see at cricket matches, and it's fantastic.
It's the summer of retirement, Tuffers, isn't it, really?
Well, someone not too far away's retired this year. Which I'd just like to congratulate him on, actually. And I did. I saw you the other day, didn't I, Steve? Where were we? I think it was...
Trent Bridge, we were.
Trent Bridge, that's right. And I said, oh, hello, Steve, what you been up to? And he said, well, actually, Phil, I've retired.
And you went, congratulations.
Well, absolutely. And I said, congratulations on a fantastic career. And we had a nice little chat about it, Steve, didn't we?
We did, and then I reached straight for the chocolates and a fizzy drink, and I've really been filling my boots for the last 10 days. It's been fantastic.
We always get told when you know. Is that right?
It's a funny one. I think as a bowler, especially a fast bowler, it can be a frustrating experience because when your body starts giving up on you, mentally you still want to be out there, and mentally you feel motivated to get back out there, but as Catherine Sciver-Brunt actually alluded to in her interview that we listened to just now, there comes a point where you just can't do what you used to, and you can't compete like you used to, and you feel like a bit of a liability. I had 12 months out with a pretty serious knee injury that required me on crutches, injecting myself in my stomach every day, and all the way through that, I was really motivated to get back out there and play. And that took 12 months to get over that injury. And then as I was coming back playing and training in about the 6 weeks or the 2 months in the build up to these 50 over games that are being played at the moment alongside the 100. And just things were hurting that hadn't hurt before. My ankle was hurting. My back was very stiff. I got into my first proper game and I had a back spasm second ball, and was just stood in the field and I couldn't move. I was trying to move after balls and I couldn't move, and I was stood there and I thought, I think you're done here, unfortunately. So you walk off the pitch, you're emotional and it's hard, but in that moment in time where you've worked so hard for 12 months to get back out there playing and then to have further setbacks and not feel like yourself, then certainly when you're there in that moment, you do know.
Did you?
Go
on, Tuffers, go on.
Yeah, I think it must be slightly different for fast bowlers, because you said also to me, Steve, that you sort of like you ran in and it just wasn't coming out right. You know what I mean? It was sort of like wobbling down there a little bit. I mean, us spinners, sort of we're like fine wine. We get better with age. But I think with something that's so physical, as you said, the time just must come, when the body can't do it.
Did you really start to feel a liability? Because that's a really strong word.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like you're letting people down. I walked off the field after 24 overs because I couldn't bowl anymore. I wouldn't have been able to do myself justice with the ball. And I couldn't have been hidden in the field for the next 26 overs. So you're sending a sub-fielder out there. You're leaving the team 6 overs short from a bowling perspective. And it didn't help that game we went for 430. So you watch the boys getting lashed all over the place out there on the pitch, and you're just sat on the sideline, not able to move with a hot water bottle on your back and with your legs up because you can't move. And it's a really humbling experience, actually. But a liability is a pretty accurate way to the feeling that you feel inside yourself when you get that, when you're in that moment.
Do you feel Catherine Sciver-Brunt was quite emotional, wasn't she, about, or it was a very emotional answer about what sport has given her from where she was when she first came into it. Do you feel quite, I don't know, touched or emotional about what the game has given you?
Very, very. My life has centred around cricket since the day I was born. My parents love it from a very normal background in Watford, but my mum was at the cricket club every weekend with my dad, who was there playing. And it's just something that you've dedicated your entire life to. And it's very hard, actually. I sound very calm when I'm speaking about it now because I've done a lot of speaking to people about this over the last 2 weeks. But those initial moments when you're deciding and you're actually giving up on something that you've dedicated your whole life to, it feels like a massive, massive loss. And you do feel a bit lost when those first few days where you don't have to watch what you eat. You're not constantly thinking about, right, when am I training next? I need to get myself in this sort of condition to be able to train in a few days' time. You do feel lost, but on the flip side, you're incredibly grateful, and I'm certainly incredibly grateful for all the opportunities that I've been given because of cricket. I've experienced, probably quite sadly actually, at 34, I've probably experienced the biggest highs that I'll ever experience in my life out there on the pitch. And knowing that you'll never replicate that is very difficult, but I'm very thankful that I have done them.
We're going to move on to talking about Ben Stokes in just a moment, but just before we do, we have a voice note from someone you know rather well.
Hi Finny, Alistair Cook here. Huge congratulations on your fantastic career. Very sad news about your retirement, but I'm sure you'll take it in your stride on to your next stage of your career as a fantastic commentator. It's a pleasure to play with you, play against you. I think you got me out twice in one day at Lords, and to captain you. I know people will always remember you for your bowling in 2015, 2010, or your thunderbolts in that one-day series in New Zealand when we were outside the 30-yard circle at slip. But I think I remember you most is for the Watford wall, that 50-odd not out as a night watchman against New Zealand. There's 200-odd balls you faced. It was one of the great knocks. The only problem was it made you think like you were a proper batsman and trying to tell the rest of us how to do it. Anyway, I hope retirement goes well and look forward to seeing the TMS box soon.
The Watford wall.
Hey,
The Watford wall.
Whoosher. The Watford whoosher by the end of my career, unfortunately. They were very brief stays at the crease towards the end. But yeah, it feels like you're at your own funeral at times, actually. You sort of reading stuff and hearing people talk about you in that way. But I'm very humbled for someone like Sir Alistair Cook to say kind things like that. It does make you quite emotional.
There's a theme to this programme, because I'm now moving on to talk to someone who is coming out of retirement, which is obviously Ben Stokes, part of England's World Cup squad. It was also announced last week that he'll play in the series against New Zealand. That begins next Wednesday. Before we talk about this decision, here's national selector Luke Wright.
It actually wasn't really a case of changing his mind. I think he was always interested in coming back. Obviously, with the Ashes being there, he's obviously had to make that priority, get through the Ashes, have a break, give the body a rest as well. So the nice thing for us was it wasn't a case of needing to beg him or anything like that. He was always keen from our point of view, and I'm sure England fans and everyone connected would be absolutely delighted. We're going to pick him as a batter. Look, we're obviously always assessing that as it goes, but the one thing we won't be doing is pushing him to bowl unless he's absolutely fit and raring to go. So that was a big part of the decision for him. But look, there's still going to be a period for him to try and get this knee right, but it's obviously not an easy one.
What do you make of the decision, Phil?
Well, I think any side with Ben Stokes, I mean, he's some player, you know, let's get this right. Ben Stokes is some player. And I think any side with a Ben Stokes in it is going to be a better side. Not only just for, listen, if he can bowl, we'll have to wait and see about his knee and this, that and the other, but just for his batting skills, but also just for his leadership qualities. You look round, and when you're playing in tight games and you sort of look round the dressing room and there's a fella like Ben Stokes there, it just puts you in a better frame of mind, do you know what I mean? And he's done he's a player for the big occasion. We've seen him do that time and time again, get important runs in World Cups and T20s and things like this. And also his leadership skills as well. I mean, I've been so impressed with his captaincy in the test matches as well. So I think it's going to be a huge help to Jos Buttler, just to not only sort of like be a sergeant, if you know what I mean, and in the trenches with the guys just to keep them going, but also to help him out as well. I mean, it's difficult to captain in white ball cricket. Things happen so fast. So if you've got another sort of captain up your sleeve, I think it's the right decision. And any side for me with Ben Stokes in it is a better side.
Okay, but what does it do to the balance of the team, Stephen?
Well, yeah.
Well, it means that Harry Brook misses out, which is a big talking point.
Unbelievable.
But it is. There's been a lot of talk about that, and also I think that may be subject to change. There's still some degree of flexibility with that 15, isn't there, until it's finally named. But I think what it does to the balance of the team, Ben Stokes plays as a top order, probably a top 5 batter and an out-and-out batter, and not having his bowling there actually does mess up the balance of the team a little bit. But I think having Ben Stokes in your team, and yes, he will score runs, he'll score important runs, but it's when he scores those runs that is the most important thing. And you look back at the big moments in English cricket over the last 5 or 6 years, the 2019 World Cup final, he was the man. The 2022 T20 World Cup final, he was the man. Headingley, he was the man. At Lords, he nearly single-handedly dragged the team over the line in that second test match at Lords in the Ashes. So he's a man mentality that you want in big tournaments, and it's of no surprise whatsoever that the phone was picked up straight away and asked him if he'd reconsider his retirement.
Do you think 15, I mean, this isn't because England have done this with Harry Brook, who we'll come on to next, but do you think squads could be bigger for this? Phil?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Why
15
not?
feels like a very small squad in modern era sport.
Absolutely. Why don't you just make it 16 or however many, 18 or something? Yeah, it does seem a little bit slim, but I still can't get over Harry Brook not being in that side. Especially after what he's been, what's he done for the last couple of years? It's just incredible. He must be a little bit disappointed. Listen, he won't miss out on too many squads in the years to come. And as Finney was saying, I'm sure that they'll find a way to somehow get him in there. It's not quite finalised, but incredible. I think there's a few boys there who are a little bit lucky, perhaps, to be keeping him out.
How do they find a way, if it's not finalised, Stephen? How do they find a way to get him in?
Well, it's simple. You just drop someone.
Yes. That, and therefore, I was trying to subtly, without saying it as much as that,
maybe not sneak him in a suitcase or something.
I was wondering whether you were going to give me a name. That's what I was trying to do.
There are 2 candidates who are vulnerable, aren't they, in that scenario? And I think that Jason Roy and David Malan will be the people that are being talked about missing out if Harry Brook were to make his way in at the 11th hour into that team. The one thing that I do think that Harry Brook gives you if he does make it into the squad is flexibility to bat anywhere in that top 6. I think he's got the technique to bat at the top of the order. He can play spin excellently and bat in the numbers 3, 4 or 5. And he can biff the ball out the park as well, which is important at 6 and 7. So I think that having a player with that flexibility in your team is important. But on the flip side of that, both Jason Roy and David Malan in the most recent ODIs in Bangladesh both scored very classy hundreds in conditions very similar to the ones that they're going to find in India. So technically they're the form players, and it's very difficult to leave either of those 2 out based on that evidence.
He's a very good player of spin, you're right, Harry Brook, you're right, Finney, as well. So, you've got to be slightly horses for courses, but I just, crikey, he must be sitting there scratching his head. He must be sitting there, well, crikey, Riley, what else have I got to do to get a game here?
Is somebody mentioned Livingston to me as well yesterday, but is Livingston less vulnerable because of his spin options?
I think because of his spin options and also the fact that you need guys at numbers 6, 7, 8 to be able to clear the ropes, especially in India, in the back end of 50 overs the 50 overs of your batting. So he offers something very different to other guys, and he gives you the flexibility to be able to bowl off spin, leg spin. He's a very good fielder. He's a very versatile cricketer, and he's turned himself into that, to his credit, actually. He didn't bowl leg spin before. He's just taught himself that in the last few years, so that when it comes to decisions like this, and when Luke Wright and all his selector friends are sat there selecting these squads, they're going, what does this person give me, and what specific skills do they give me? And if the list is 4 or 5 long, it means that your chances of getting selected in that squad are far higher.
Phil?
No, absolutely, couldn't agree more. Liam Livingstone is a real sort of like specific kind of player, as Steve was saying. He has the ability to absolutely clear the fence, as does the likes of Harry Brook. But Harry is that kind of fellow who I think could build an innings slightly more than Liam. Liam is a real impact kind of player with the bat, and just the perfect guy, as you say, coming in 6 or 7 or wherever, just to go and absolutely with a license just to absolutely smash it. And the way this England, it just goes to show the strength in depth here of this England white ball side.
Yeah.
And like that, Harry Brook can't get in it. But as you say, Liam's a slightly different kettle of fish to Harry, but a great person who puts you as a bowling side when you're bowling at him, and he comes to the pitch. He can win you the game in the last 10 or 15 overs. He can just put you up to those scores of 300, 350, and even knocking on the door of 400.
Going to talk to England women cricket coach John Lewis now, having named their squad for the Sri Lanka ODI and IT20 series that get underway later this month. Evening, John.
Evening, chappers. Evening, boys.
We're going to particularly talk about 17-year-old fast bowler Mahika Gur, who's got her first England call-up and looks a special talent.
Yeah, for sure. And really exciting, isn't it, for someone of that age to sort of burst on the scene this year. And, I think this is a really nice opportunity for us to get some game time at the next level again and see where she's at. I think the really exciting thing about her is obviously she's quite a lot taller than most female fast bowlers. So bounce and movement for me in the women's game is something that is we've seen Lauren Bell get a lot of across the summer and cause problems for some of the best players in the world. So I hope that Mahika will come in and do something similar.
Is that, when you refer, because you've referred to her unique attributes, is that in the main what you've been referring to?
Yeah. So my view is that we can develop pace in the women's game, and we've seen obviously Lauren Filer bowl pretty quick across the summer, and that will take the girls so far. But the batters are very, very good actually at dealing with the ball that goes through a little bit quicker. But the bounce and the lateral movement in particular in women's cricket is something that, is something I really look for. And she does that. So, and especially with a new ball, which is, again, an area which I'm really keen for us to develop as a team. So that's one of the main reasons why we've selected her.
Yeah, John, Filer looks a real prospect as well. She could get it down at a fair old lick.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't think there's many girls in the world that bowl at the same pace as her. She's only been a professional cricketer for a year, so she's really, really raw. She looks like she's improving her ability to control the ball in the 100, which I've been really pleased with. So yeah, she deserves her selection as well.
And actually, what you've seen with some of these women is the responsibility that comes with the 100. If you look at Mahika Gur for Manchester Originals, sometimes she's bowling 10, 15 balls in the power play. Yeah,
so that's I feel like we've got some space in our squads for someone who can really dominate the power play. So her skills and her attributes really look like they match up really well for that. We can obviously develop her death skills, her slower balls, her Yorkers, and her short ball as well. And I think over time, as she develops into a better athlete, she will bowl quicker than she does at the moment. So we're really keen to get her in and around us, to expose her to international cricket as much as we can over this series. We'll obviously manage that carefully because she's obviously still very young and very raw. So we just want to get her in and around us and see how she goes.
Are we entering a sort of new era for England's bowling attack?
I think there are some really exciting young fast bowlers around. we've always got to look to performance at the right time. When we go and play our bigger teams in the world, your Indias, your Australias, and then obviously at World Cups. We've got a year now till a World Cup and a 2020 World Cup, and then we've got another the following year and the 50 over World Cup, and then the Ashes the following year after that. So, we've got to build up over time and try and get caps into young fast bowlers as much as we can.
It's a real balancing act, isn't it, actually?
Yeah, it is really. It really is a balancing act because we're trying to develop the team and develop our bowlers whilst they're playing international cricket. So that's very different to having a very experienced group of fast bowlers. So I need to have a big group of them to be able to shuffle the pack as much as I can.
Stephen, just talking about trying to find that balance there with pace bowlers and when they get their experience in big games, but not so many inexperienced bowlers in big games.
Yeah, you want to give people a soft landing, I think, and you want to see how they are in the environment. And John was just saying that, get her around the group, and that just means get her used to and feeling comfortable in and around the people she's probably been watching on TV for the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And it can be quite overawing when you get into a dressing room and you've got all these superstars there and you're thrust into a big game straight away. So being around the group and growing the squad of players that you have to pick from is actually a very important thing when you're developing teams when it comes to world tournaments, because then if you have a group of, say, 25 players that you're picking 15 from for a world tournament, you just pick who's in form at that time. And I think that's a really good thing for the England women at the moment, and great that there are so many talents being found.
And making sure, John, that your group isn't intimidating for someone who comes in and has seen half of them on the telly for the last 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. So we got Mahika in earlier in the year to be around when we were training prior to the Ashes series. She was really calm, really clear about what she was doing, and she just fitted in really, really quickly, actually. She was very mature for a 17-year-old girl. And we were really excited what we saw. She got a couple of wickets in a red ball practice day that we had, and we just thought, I've just been keeping an eye on her across the course of the summer. We put her in and around the A squad, and she didn't stand out as a performer in that, but she definitely contributed to the team. And so, like I said, the skills that she has at the moment are really something we're looking to try and develop.
And she produced one of the balls of the tournament yesterday as well. Thank you, John.
No problem, chappers.
Thank you,
see you, lads.
England women's cricket coach John Lewis.
It's funny, Steve, and chappers there, you were talking about soft landings and everything and getting people around the group, unlike myself, who made his debut at the MCG. It would not be even thought about nowadays.
Yes, but also not only not having a soft landing by making your debut at the MCG, but that was that not the tour? Because you've told this story before, where you turned up at the Heathrow Hotel the night before, didn't you, for that tour, and Gower and Botham thought when you walked to the bar to talk to them that you were an autograph hunter.
Absolutely, because in those days, I hadn't played any cricket against them, and I'm sure they might have been pulling my leg a little bit, but I'd never met David Gower, I'd never met Adeline Lamb or anything like that. And as you say, as a young kid that's going off to play in this sort of like huge tour down under in Australia for the Ashes, but you just flew by the seat of your pants in those days, didn't you? And they bought me a beer and we were big mates.
But what an intimidating atmosphere to have to go up and introduce yourself to Gower and Botham.
Absolutely. I was terrified.